Hello everyone, thank you for joining us in this edition of The Inside on Equinoxe Television. I am Babla Jonathan. For quite some time now, major opposition political parties in the Republic of Cameroon have been facing or witnessing internal wrangling and the political problem, the internal problems within the ranks of the Social Democratic Front, the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, the Union des Populations du Cameroun, have been repeatedly attributed to failure, division, selfish ambition, poor leadership. And the case of the Social Democratic Front is on the table in this edition of the Inside, and we're going to be looking at what is happening within the ranks of the Social Democratic Front. What has become of the Social Democratic Front? Where is it going to? Where is it taking Cameroonians to? We'll take a look at this and we'll also talk about some issues in the news, notably the decision of the President of the Republic, Paul Biya, to deploy special forces to the northwest and southwest regions of the country within the context of efforts to stop secessionist activities, or better still, to restore peace and normalcy in the crisis-stricken regions. And this is raising concerns within the ranks of those who have been condemning the continuous use of military force to stop secessionist activities in those two regions. Meet our guest in some few seconds. Our guest today is Denis NKEMLEMO. He is the National Communications Secretary of the Social Democratic Front. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Jonathan. Good evening, viewers. It's my pleasure to be in front of you, millions of Equinoxe televiewers. We hope that this conversation will help to enrich and increase our level of political awareness, especially on the Social Democratic Front, my dear party, and on national issues.
Right, one of the major issues on the global scene today, as far as news is concerned, is the death of the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth II, who died at the age of 96, and King Charles is already taking over as the new leader of the British Kingdom, or the United Kingdom. And there's a lot that is going on around the death of the Queen and the new king, or the coming king, King Charles. The whole issue is attracting global attention, notably on the aspect of the people's cultural settings, the people's royal settings, that has become a global attraction. What do you think about this?
It's not a surprising thing for that to happen, because the British monarchy, or the United Kingdom, it was a global empire that cut across Africa, Asia, and even America, because the United States of America, as is today, is a birth child of the United Kingdom. So they had this global empire, which can only be compared to other global empires in the past, like the Roman Empire and so on. So it is very normal, because this global empire that was Elizabeth II was an architect, one of the architects of, because the reign of the British Empire, she was part of it. Her reign was.
She has been the longest serving monarch, 70 years.
Good. Because of this global empire, it created international links right to even us in Cameroon, southern Cameroons. The name of Southwest and Northwest was first called British Southern Cameroons. The British Southern Cameroons. So you can see the extent to which the tentacles of the British Empire went globally. And that is why the death of the Queen is a world affair, not just an affair of the British. Remember that the Queen, even as we speak today, the Queen of England, presently is the King, or the throne of England, is the head of Commonwealth of Nations. And the Commonwealth is a global international organization that englobes so many countries, English-speaking countries in the world, in Africa, in America, in the Americas, and in Asia. So it is not surprised that her death should be breaking international news.
Now, while tributes are streaming in from across the world, including tributes from African leaders, some Africans are highlighting their sufferings under British colonial rule, pointing to the fact that much of the colonization was done in the name of the royal family.
Yes, of course. Colonialism was one of the greatest misfortunes that befell Africans. There is nothing positive in colonialism, and Britain was at the heart of colonialism, because it is through colonialism that British built the empire that we were just talking about, and particularly to talk about the case that I know very well, which is a case that directly concerns me, the issue of southern Cameroon, which has spilled too much blood in Cameroon today. Sons and daughters of the same country have been killing each other. There has been a lot of destruction. It is because of the mistakes. It is because of the mistakes of the British Empire. It is because of the mistakes of the United Kingdom under the leadership of Queen Elizabeth II. It is because of the failure to effectively decolonize that we are in the mess in which we are. So there is no way a right-thinking and politically aware Southern Cameroonian in particular, and Cameroonian in general, in all fairness, will be comfortable with what Britain under the reign of Queen Elizabeth did. And then she had all the time to repair some of this damage.
And that is exactly why some Cameroonians from the northwest and southwest regions are raising the issues that she's died without doing anything about the problem on the ground, without really speaking out on the issue, without doing something to remedy the situation, which she, or better still, the United Kingdom as a whole, contributed.
Not only contributed, you know, the issue of Southern Cameroons from when we became a quasi state and ruled by John Foncha as premier, was under Queen Elizabeth II's reign. And the negotiation for independence by joining French Cameroon in 1961 was under Queen Elizabeth II's reign. And the crisis erupted because of tensions and difficulty to harmoniously manage that union between Southern Cameroon and French-speaking Cameroon. The tension that erupted into war happened under her reign. So there is no way she can, because that is the most powerful person in the United Kingdom, the Queen. And so she abdicated her functions and her responsibilities as far as British Southern Cameroons are concerned. She would have used the leverage she had to make sure that a peaceful settlement to this problem arises, because she and the French are architects of what is happening in Cameroon. We will know that the United Nations gave the responsibility to prepare these two people, to prepare French Cameroon and English Cameroon for independence. They failed in their responsibility. And the leader of France, I think it was de Gaulle, if I'm not mistaken, who was working alongside his French counterpart, his English counterpart, Queen Elizabeth II, is long dead. But Queen Elizabeth had lived up to now. She had lived to see the consequences of some of the errors. Unfortunately, de Gaulle had not lived to see that. But Queen Elizabeth had lived to see the consequences, and she has done little or nothing. And so that is why I say that any right-thinking Cameroonian is not happy with the role that Britain played and continue to play within the crisis that, as regard the crisis that is in the Northwest and South.
What will you expect from King Charles, who is taking over?
King Charles really needs to put pressure, using the leverage that they have, to put pressure for the belligerents to have a peaceful settlement of this, to save human lives. If they kill everybody in the Southwest and Northwest, either killed by the military or killed by even their own brothers too, the Amber Boys, who are also killing their own brothers. If they disseminate the population of the Northwest and Southwest through this senseless, useless war, at the end of the day, what will we have gained? This is a terrible situation. So King Charles III, is this the third? I think it's King Charles III.
King Charles III, yes.
He has the responsibility to use the leverage. Cameroon is an independent country, I agree. But we know that the world does not stand idle and watch the people disseminate themselves the way it is being done. And so he needs to use his leverage and the fact that coupled with the fact that they are authors of the problem, to make sure that they put pressure, enough pressure on the belligerents to come to their senses and talk like brothers and sisters and
for
settle
the
this
problem
thing
to be solved
peacefully.
And the war is still raging on, and now the President of the Republic has decided to deploy special forces specialized in the fight against terrorism to those two regions. But before we come to that, let's look at something concerning the Queen. The world is praising her because of outstanding, firm, apolitical stand and her contributions in the positive perspective in global issues. But when we look at this traditional authority and our own traditional authorities here, most of whom have become politicians, politicizing the palace, politicizing everything, what can we pick as lessons from the apolitical stand throughout 70 years of reign of the Queen?
Royalty is sacrosanct. Royalty is sacred because royalty encapsulates the traditions and the culture of a people. And cultural architects will tell you that a people without a culture are like a tree without roots, which means it will dry off and die. And which means that you'll be looking at the world and managing the world from an alien perspective, from another person's cultural perspective. So culture is at the center. And that is why custodians of culture are supposed to be apolitical. Because when you go into partisan politics, you face so many adversaries. What has destroyed our chiefdoms and fondoms in Cameroon as a whole is the fact that they have mixed themselves into partisan politics and lost all the credibility. How will you imagine, Jonathan, that I am the parliamentary candidate for the Social Democratic Front? I'm just giving you a hypothetical situation of the social in the BLM. Then the fund of my village is a CPM parliamentary candidate. We are of different parties. The fund, when he goes out and talks, the subject doesn't talk. That is how it is, because we don't challenge the fund in public. But when you find ourselves wearing different caps like political opponents, you cannot get into the political boxing ring and say you will give me political blows and I will not respond. And that is what our funds have gone down the drain by choosing side. Funds are not supposed to choose side. And that is why the palaces, our palaces, which are the custodians of our culture, have just been destroyed. They don't have any bearing again. Now, coming to the example of Great Britain that you have given, the King or Queen of England is apolitical. They are two very powerful most powerful political parties in Britain that animate the political arena of Britain. The Labour and the Conservatives. The Prime Minister can come from any of these political parties. The Queen or the King is there above all that political wrangling. Whichever Prime Minister, whichever the people of Britain, from whichever party, the people of Britain give her or him, depending on whether it's the Queen or the King, he or she works with that person without any problem. So, but when we come into Cameroon and some other African countries, and then go to the extent, because I give you an example, go to the extent where they oblige chiefs to sew uniforms. In this part of the Mongo, where you come to Betilan, you see chiefs sewing uniforms that they wear that look like the uniforms of the Dios and the senior Dios, which are like like those of governor, which are colonial uniforms.
And they're described as auxiliaries of the
And then they have created, they have annexed them to the administration, which is something terrible, because they now become, rather be leaders of their people, they become servants of administrative officers.
And most often political parties.
I think that we are working on something in the Social Democratic Front that by God's grace will come to power, which I'm very sure will come to power, that the funds and the chiefs should not be placed again under the Ministry of Territorial Administration. They are supposed to be placed under the Ministry of Culture, because the primary role of the chiefs, they are the custodians of a people's culture. They administer the people, but what guides them to administer the people is the cultural perspectives of those people. So if you make them politicians, to take them and put them under Dios, and the Dios come to the villages and start giving orders, it doesn't work like that. The Dio is supposed to come into the fondoms and do the administrative work that he does with the forces of security, with the service heads, and then when it comes to issues of culture, the Dios have no power there. Because when you realize what goes on in most of the villages in the southwest and the northwest, and even in, I'm talking of areas that I know better, how can the Dio get into a fondom and be settling land disputes? Issues that are supposed, the fund and the traditional power set up in the village know who owns what. There are traditional institutions to settle some of these things. But we see that it has gone to a level now, we start carrying issues that are within the competence of traditional institutions structured by our forefathers, well established in the fondoms, to be joined by Dios who are foreigners, appointed from Yaoundé, who do not even know our culture. That is where the problem is.
They represent the administration, and there's a Ministry of State Properties.
They represent the
lands governing and the laws governing land issues.
But I have to also remind you that the owner of the land in every fondom is a fund. From the fund, then parcels of land are given to individuals. When in a normal way of doing things, when administration, which the government, the state is the owner of all the land in Cameroon. When the administration wants to do something in a particular fondom, use land to do something in a particular fondom, they have to pass through the fund. It is the fund that will guide them, because the fund is the custodian of the land in that fondom. But if you imagine that a senior divisional officer, out of overzealousness and of a show of power, will go and just choose a piece of land for whatever without having consultation and advice from the fund.
And that issue of land grabbing is causing a lot of problems, particularly in the southwest region of the country. And you are saying that, in a nutshell, that traditional authorities should be apolitical. They shouldn't belong to any political party and so on. And they should not be subjected to the administration.
Not necessarily apolitical, yes, is the right term. We are not saying they can't do politics, but they shouldn't do partisan politics. For example, in the days of West Cameroon, former West Cameroon or Southern Cameroon, there was a house of chiefs. They constituted themselves into a pressure group, which we can call in modern terms a civil society, where they had an institution, which through that they use it to create leverage that pushes government to do certain reforms connected to traditional institutions.
Right, and the House of Chiefs has been restored. Though many
restored,
not to agree
what,
that
what we have now is nothing compared to what we used to have.
I wanted to say that some of the things that you're saying now, some of the traditional authorities listening to you will certainly disagree with you and will not be very happy with the fact that you're saying that they should not be under the Ministry of Territorial Administration. They shouldn't do politics because probably they'll be looking at the advantages and their salary and things
I just want to clear a point there for some of those traditional rulers who may not be comfortable with what I'm saying. If you place I have to believe that if we place traditional authority under the Ministry of Culture, the Ministry of Culture in Parliament will defend a budget to defend traditional institutions, because the traditional institutions are culture. So they will identify the policies. Look at what is happening in next door Nigeria and other places. The state builds policies, real policies, and preserve artifacts, traditional artifacts, and make policies look beautiful. The Ministry of Culture, from the standpoint that they are defending, these are the custodians of our culture and traditions, they have a big allocation that can take care of the policies rather than giving the mere salary. What you call salary is chicken feed. They pay a chief 50,000. What can a chief do with 50,000? What can a first class chief with I don't know how many
200,000?
What can he do? I don't know your salary, but you are just an individual. What can 200,000 do to you? What to not talk less of a whole fund with a first class fund?
All right, let's proceed with something else. Let's come back to the prevailing situation in the northwest and southwest regions, and we're talking about the fact that the President of the Republic has decided to deploy special forces specialized in the fight against terrorism. What do you think about this?
I'm very sad about that, but it comforts the position that we have always, in the Social Democratic Front, the view that we have always had vis-a-vis the government of this country, that priority number one to them is military solution. Every day, since the escalation of the problem into a crisis and war from 2017, they have been stepping up the level of military intervention. It has only been increasing. And as they put more emphasis on the military intervention by scaling it higher and higher, they abandon other options, which to us are the best. Because if for 6 years we have used military, the force.
Military and dialogue.
Which dialogue? What we had in Yaoundé called national dialogue was a scam. Because you cannot call a dialogue of aggrieved people and you single-handedly determine the agenda. And when people come and propose that they should include this agenda, you say instructions are given that we work on this.
Well,
how is that dialogue?
Well, that's a debate.
Except we don't understand the meaning of dialogue.
That's a debate for another day. About the deployment of special forces, isn't it a response to the changing dynamics as far as the military component of the crisis is concerned? The separatists on the other side have been increasing their military, or let me say their use of weapons. For example, they've been increasing their use of sophisticated weapons.
Wrong diagnosis lead to wrong results, and wrong conclusions and wrong actions, and promote the crisis. I think the crisis has got to this level not because the military has not killed enough.
But the question is, should the military not respond to
I am coming.
Use of sophisticated weapons?
I am coming. Why have those weapons become more sophisticated? Because of the military's firepower. That has made the people on the other side to look for corresponding firepower. What the President Biya's decree, or whatever decision he just took, or however it's called, is escalation. In retail, it's called he is escalating the war. And when there is a war situation and you escalate on the other side, don't think your opponent will sleep. It will lead to further escalation. I think we have gone to a level where we should be more level-headed, and we should try to calm down, de-escalate, rather escalate. Because they started with Dane guns. Why did they move from Dane guns to AK-47?
M15.
And then M15, and then grenade propellers, and then explosives. It was because the government's military power, the state's military power, was pushing them to look for corresponding power to face what is coming. So you think that the special force that will go there, it will push them to go to a higher level too, because they are determined. They are ready to die. They want, when you listen to them, life means nothing to them. So yeah, and most of them are not even the boys fighting. How many of them are married and have children and have responsibilities? But those military officers, they have families they leave behind.
So if you were if you were the head of state,
yes,
would you just allow?
No, if I were the
bombarding military vehicles,
this decision is
killing soldiers, and then
I am not saying that the government has to withdraw the military from the southwest and northwest and give it a free ride to those who are fighting. That is not the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that we have got to a level where we have to look each other in the face and say, these 6 years of shedding blood every day, has it brought us anywhere? If not, let us explore other ways, and we take bold and courageous decisions. It needs a man of courage at a 2D to take a bold and courageous decision that escalates.
A decision like a return to the federal system of
government. Which is, I don't know why this government is
That's so what your party has.
Yes, because imagine a true federal system in Cameroon will make the problem disappear. Why? Because it is a problem of autonomy of management of resources, whether personnel, economic, and political power. It is a problem of political power. The English people in Northwest and Southwest feel that they were autonomous and had a lot of political leverage when it came to managing their own affairs before they came and joined these people. The unfortunate problem, as I said in one program before, is that the war has distracted us from the main issue. Because we make as if the Anglophone problem is the war. The Anglophone problem is not the war. The Anglophone problem is the thing that brought the war. So we now over-concentrate on the war rather than on the problem, which is the root causes. And that's why the SDL have been saying that we have to go to the root causes, because we cannot be treating the war, which is only a symptom of the Anglophone problem.
And forget about
the problem itself.
All right, we're going to take a look at what the newspapers reported this week. Immaculate Fogwe takes us to the newsstands, and when we come back, we'll now focus on the main subject of this edition of The Inside, the political wrangling within the Social Democratic Front political party. Stay with us.
The Voice says, major national dialogue, 3 years on, major strides lingering atrocities. Eco Outlook reports, implementation of resolutions of major national dialogue. Prime Minister Chief Joseph John Gote calls for acceleration of actions. As reported by Chronicle Times, diaspora weighs in, salutes government's efforts, ingenuity in the implementation of recommendations of the major national dialogue. According to the Guardian Post, as atrocities, unrest persists in the northwest and southwest regions, pressure mounts on government for another dialogue to end the crisis. The Horizon questions if it is the end of the road for General No Pity. Another edition of the Guardian Post exclaims, over 900 student gendarmes dismissed over fake certificates. Cameroon echoes, Fako Division, Maumo village at the brink of deadly clash.
Thank you, Immaculate Fogwe, for the press review. Denis NKEMLEMO, National Communications Secretary of the Social Democratic Front. Tell us, what is happening within the ranks of the Social Democratic Front? Is the party falling apart?
No. It is political boisterousness. It is political dynamism. It is democracy. It is a clear indication of a party that is alive. A party without internal debates. A party without divergent views on issues and management is a hand-clapping party. We have the ambition to take this country and rule it, to democratize this country, to accept opponents' divergent views on things. If we can't manage that in our own party, which is a less complex institution, shall we be able to manage that at the level of the state? The fact that Jonathan disagrees with me on an issue does not make him my opponent, my enemy. Especially we are comrades of the same political party. I distance myself a little bit with your intro on the issue when you were introducing this discussion as one of the issues we will discuss on this program about you qualify as the problems in the SDF.
There are no problems?
I think that it is overstated. There are not real problems, and there is not a crisis.
Are there problems within the SDF?
Every family has problems, but those problems, we can call it problems. My point is the context, calling it problem, you are already taking it to a level of a crisis. It's not, it's not every problem that is a crisis.
When the divergent views,
yes,
the divergent opinions, ideologies, and whatever you may call it, begin to develop cracks on the walls of the party.
Can you point out those cracks to me?
Threatening
yes,
to push the party to a point where it may collapse.
I may be learning from you. In the SDF, I have not seen those threats. What I have seen is some comrades have sat down and said that the party constitution is being swept under the carpet. And because certain decisions taken do not reflect the wonderful constitution that the party has. And they consider that as an embarrassment. And so they say that those things have to be rectified.
Decisions like the recent appointments.
How will you, Jonathan, how will you imagine? Let me tell you, how will you imagine? Some of those things are embarrassment. And it is, before I get to that, let me tell you something. When you watch advanced democratic parties, be it the Labour in Great Britain, be it the Republicans in the United States, you see debates on how the party should go on the media everywhere, and it's healthy. Yes, people have different views. A mass party like SDF, people have different views, and they debate even on the media. You see CNN, you see how they fight of Republicans. You know, Liz Cheney and Trump. Have they said that? I mean, it is when they start out debate in a democratic party, the arbitrator is the comrades, the members of that party. It is not the leader. Because especially if, for example, the leader of the Republican Party in US now is Trump. But Liz Cheney doesn't agree with Trump's approach, the direction in which he is taking the Republican Party. Have they met and sanctioned her? She was beaten in the primaries. Who was the arbitrator? The voters. The voters. They sided with Trump. That is what a democratic party does. That is to say, if somebody has a divergent view, give him the floor to air what he has.
That's democracy.
Yes, and when you give him the floor to air what he has, you take the floor now to defend your own position. Then the referee is the kingmaker in the party, who are the members. That is what happens. So this idea of looking at some people as traitors, as they are eaten and they want to destroy the party, how is having a different view destruction of the party? That is the problem. Can you imagine, my dear brother, that the constitution of the party states clearly, I'm not here to defend, I'm a National Communication Secretary, I'm not here to defend whosoever. I'm just having the democratic spirit, because one of my roles as National Communication Secretary of the Social Democratic Front is to tell the world how democratic we are, how debates are strong in the SDF. but we remain a family. I'm not coming here to say this side of the debate is good, this one is bad. Some communicators have come and taken this, become so partisan in this thing because you.
So tell us how what happened that the Constitution was swept under the table.
Let me make this point. You know, His Excellency Nijon Frundi, very charismatic leader, one of my political idols, the person that contributed a lot to me joining the SDF without knowing, he didn't know me, by virtue of his forthrightness, his fight for justice, his courage, his eloquence. He became chairman at the age of 40 something years old. Very young man at that age. 30 years, he's now 82. When you get to a certain age, natural things start coming. And as a foresighted person that he has always been, I was very happy when, without duress and pressure, and as a Democrat that he has always been, he chose to say he will withdraw from politics, from the SDF leadership in the next convention. And yes, gave very strong reasons. And
that is to come. But first, before we
what I'm coming to say is that
before we get there, about the constitution of the party being swept.
That is where I wanted to use that to come in to tell you that at a certain age, he gave those reasons, and we saw with him. We wish he were younger to continue steering the party. We saw with him. And at a certain age start playing on you. And then some people who are around you take advantage of the fact that the lucidity is no longer there as it used to be. And they can push you to error. It's not the first. Many people have pushed leaders to errors. I mean, heads of state, you know that. Because of their personal selfish interests. How will you imagine that the constitution of the party says that somebody should not be get into the executive organ of the party when he has not
committee of the party.
Yeah, when he has not militated for 5 years, and then you go and appoint somebody who is not even a card carrier of the party. Not the issue is not even that he has not spent enough time in the party. The issue is that he's not even a member of the party. That is terrible. And the chairman is not, let me make this point very well because people misunderstand me. The chairman is not a god to know every member of the party by name, card carrier of the party. So if the person whom he consult and seek advice, if he comes and give the name, he will know that this man cannot give this name when he's to appoint a non-member of the party.
That is why
and appoints, and then you imagine that the person himself, because you can be a card carrier, I communications, I don't know all the card carriers. If the person, we already understood that he's not a member of the party when he himself came out. You know how embarrassing it is? To come out and say, no, I'm not in party politics, I'm in the civil society, I don't. It was so embarrassing. So when in normal circumstances, a person who pushes the leader to that type of error should be sanctioned. So this is what we are. Are you getting me?
Right now,
so
tell us.
So the point is pushing. If I'm very loyal to the constitution of the party, every card carrier member and member of the SDF has the best constitution among political parties in the country. The founding fathers were very intelligent people, and so the constitution has spelled everything out. And when you take leadership position in the SDF, not even member, the constitution says when you take the card as a member, not leader, you have to swear to abide by the constitution of the party. When you take a leadership position in the party, before they install you, they take the constitution and hold it. You swear on the constitution that you will respect and obey this constitution.
Right.
That is very solemn and sacred.
As the National Communications Secretary, what do you know about the appointment of Barrister Agbo Bala?
I don't know anything.
As minister, shadow cabinet minister of justice. What do you?
I don't know.
Were you aware?
I don't know. I was not aware, and I'm not supposed to. It's not an obligation that I should be aware. So that the issue is not at that level. I'm not the chairman. The chairman is not obliged to seek my opinion.
How did it come about?
I don't know, because he didn't consult me, but it shows somebody proposed to him. And I am not complaining that I was not consulted. He is not obliged to consult me. He is the national chairman of the party. The issue is not whether I knew or not, and I've told you that I didn't know.
No,
the issue is the constitutional problem.
No, you were talking
and
about
it was embarrassment to us in the party.
You were talking about the aging state of the national chairman. Now they are vice presidents who are supposed to handle some things and make sure that things go right. So such mistakes should not occur.
Well, yes, that is why we say.
But from what you're saying, we can conclude that it was a deliberate.
I don't know whether it would be difficult to. I'm not here to make judgmental statements on the action of anybody. So, because if I say it was deliberate, it's a judgmental statement. I don't want to be judgmental. I just want to say that what is a fact is that His Excellency, the national chairman, charismatic leader of our party, was put in error. That putting of him in error might have been deliberate or just an accident. I don't want to be judgmental about it.
Now, this internal wrangling is often than not only in the SDF, even in other political parties, attributed to things like failure, division, self-ambition, poor leadership. If people begin to qualify what is happening in the SDF as issues of failure of the party failing, or the leadership of the party failing, division of the party, self-ambition, and poor leadership, will they be wrong?
There is nothing wrong in being ambitious in a political party. If you are not ambitious in a political party, what are you doing there? Because political parties are created, people who take leadership roles in those political parties or belong to those political parties want to take power and govern according to their vision, which is in contrast with the reigning vision of the person ruling. So when you get there, you want to get into a position where your own thinking, first of all, at the level of the party, you have your own way that you think the party should move. And for that, you to have the leverage to implement that way, for make that thing move that way, you have to take power positions within the party for it to go the way you want it to go. And so it is normal that conflicting ambitions and interests should come in. There is nothing bad about that. It's normal, because the political terrain is a fight, it's a boxing ring. There is nothing wrong with that. A person who doesn't want that to have an adversary in a party is a monolithic thinking person. It's a dictator, because you must have adversaries. Now, with all those diversities, with all those conflicting ambitions and interests, the moderator is the constitution. And in creating the constitution of the party, they foresaw that these conflicting ambitions, self-interest will come in. So they put a check through the constitution. It becomes dangerous if we start having people who want to operate out of the constitution have their way. When people want to have to operate out of the constitution, want them to have their way, you make things very dangerous for the party, because it will become anarchy. It will become jungle. It is the rule of the law, and you want to take over the country and rule, you should convince Cameroonians that you respect the law. Because if you don't respect your own laws, you will not respect national laws when you become the ruling party in the country. And that's why we are suffering with the ruling party now. Because the ruling party applies the law only when it serves their purpose. Let me make this point, it's very important. It is because of that I respect the national chairman. It was because of that during the last NEC meeting, which people, all of you flooded the whole of, when I say you, I mean media houses, because you like scoop, you like, I don't know. So you flooded the place, you thought that SDF will explode. We got there. The debate on the issue of people who were saying that some of these things that were done were not done constitutionally was a hot debate, and the chairman moderated it, and said these issues are important issues that we cannot discuss in an open meeting. So let us give it to experts. That's why the chairman handed the file to the national legal advisors, who are people with sound minds grounded in the law, and they know the constitution of their party, to examine. And that is how the matter, the explosion that you people expected to have, didn't happen. And they are examining it, and everybody has access to the constitution and knows what is there. The state knows what the constitution says. They will come and give their decision based on the constitution, which is the political bible of the Social Democratic Front. And so how do you call that a crisis? The SDM is about to scatter into pieces when things have been done. The charisma of national chairman was seen in the way he handled that matter. According to some people, that some of those illegalities benefited them. They were expecting that the chairman would just come and force the other people to resign, call them rebels, call them coup plotters, call them all sorts of names, and destroy them. Then on the other side,
there appears to be two opposing currents of ideas in the Social Democratic Front. Some who want to hold on, like you want to hold on to the roots of the party, who want to hold on to the fundamentals of the party, and others who seem to be taking another direction.
No, anybody, I'm happy that you mentioned me as being one of the people who have to be for the fundamental principles and ideology as defined by our constitution, as made by our founding fathers. Anybody who has a different ambition to that, an ambition different from that, is not a good member of the SDF. That is why many of us joined the SDF. So the Social Democratic Front does not have a crisis per se. It is a debate within the party. And when I, as National Communication Secretary of the Social Democratic Front, on a set like this, I defend the party. I defend everybody. I'm here to defend everybody because I communicate for the party. That's why I'm telling you that people who took the decisions that are highly criticized have their own reasons to do that. People who are criticizing those decisions have their own reasons to do that. The issue now is, it shows the buoyancy of the party, the democratic buoyancy of the party. Because in other political parties, look at what happened in the West region. Because of simple election, somebody was sacked from a political party. I don't want to mention the name here. You know the issue in the region, in West region, of the organization of a political party where the GO even had to come in. And at the end of the day, they discovered that there was somebody from an opponent, that is what they say, an opponent political party who wanted to infiltrate that party and take positions to so take things to the other party. I don't want to mention the names of the political party because you know. And he was finally sacked. We don't sack. The chairman of the SDF don't take his pen and sack people like that. If
there's an article,
a procedure that follows, A2 that you want to mention follows, the chairman has no power over A2. It is a disciplinary procedure. You are tried and tested, you bring your own lawyer who is a party member. So, we are not sacking any person in the SDF. The debate continues. Luckily, in about 6 months, we have a national convention. That is a moment where the kingmakers will arbitrate. They will come and arbitrate. And we want, the chairman is giving up in 2023 convention, sorry. We don't want a new chairman who will come and have a reference that of sweeping the party constitution under the table, under the carpet. Whosoever is taking in next year should be somebody who knows that he is sitting on a constitution that must be strictly followed.
Right, we're going to take some interviews right now, and after that, we'll take a look at where the SDF is going to.
Mr. Babila, we live in a jungle in this country, to begin with. We live in a jungle. And we live in a society where corruption is so rampant. You know, the worst thing we have in this country is that the judicial police officers we have, who are supposed to conduct investigations, are so mean. Most of them are so mean. Mr. Babila, I, a lawyer, I brought a case against somebody who dug water from his house, from his house and directed it on the road. That creates me a problem to enter my compound, which is an offense for you to direct water on the road. I go to the police station, I lay a complaint. They went there, they saw that this thing was done, I am right to say, to bring this action. They took my statement and did everything. And when the man came, probably gave them money. And they started playing with the fire. They are doing that to a lawyer, then what more of ordinary citizens? That is commissariat dispute in Lokpong. So I just want to let you know that where the judicial police officers have nothing to offer than collect money, you have those situations. Look, those guys are ready to arrest those traffickers with proofs. Once they have money, once you bribe them, you are done, you can go. And that is a problem. Those who even go to the courts, when they go to the courts, how many magistrates are just? How many magistrates render good justice? You see, it is a problem. But some of us will fight for justice. And coming to the Anglophone crisis, you know, it is seriously political. And political matters are treated differently, differently from other normal civil matters. Why? Because the government has an interest. And once the government has an interest, the government wants to keep those people. And I think it's the wrong thing to do, because you see create social unrest. You see create some families, you see create pains in some families. Whereas the government could do the right thing to pardon those people, because their revendications are just. Their revendications are good. Safe for those who maybe along the line killed others, you see. Kill others, because in saying all these things, we should not in any way encourage people to pick up arms and kill others. We have to condemn that. You can bring your actions, you can do whatever you do, but killing others is not the right thing to do. Whether they are Ambazonians, whether they're from the government, whether they're civilians, is not the right thing to do. Everybody has his right to his life.
I am a very strong advocate for school resumption, especially within this 2022-23 academic year. The reason is simple. You cannot groom a nation with illiterates. It doesn't make any sense. See what is going on in Southern Sudan today. Despite all the struggle that went on for 25, 26 years, when the independence was finally granted to them, what happened? People disagree every day, and disagreement doesn't mean that you should be fighting, but they keep fighting within themselves. No more the fight between Southern Sudan and the central government. So you see what education can do for a population. So let our children go back to school, while the military, the government, and whoever, call them secessionists and whatever name we want to give them, they should be doing what they are doing. That is what they are supposed to be doing. Let the children go back to school. Even in times of war, children are educated. Hospitals are opened for care to be taken to even those who are injured at the war front. So please, 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 this is a lone voice calling for the return of children to school. We all know that our economy is based on children being educated. you cannot run a country with a group of illiterates, which was not even their intention to be where they are today. I am talking about the students. They have suffered a lot. Please, please, please let them go back to school. Keep whatever name you want to call the school, government school, community school. Remember in West Cameroon days, they did not used to call government schools. They used to call them community schools. And there is nothing bad if a community school is to be created for children to go and study. All what we want is children should go back to school. That is where they belong.
Parent-teachers relationship, it should be cordial. It should be very, very cordial. Because at times we have discovered that some parents don't even have time with their children at home. When that homework is there, whether it is the maid in the house that will struggle, or they don't even just do it. So parents doesn't pay good time with their children at home. It is good for parents to always check the child's book every day that the child comes back. Just spend even 30 minutes with that child. I know that parents who they are so tired when they come back from work like that, they are tired. But just 30 minutes you spend with that child on his or her books, it will make that child to know that education is very, very important. Because when we talk of education here and then they come to the house, nothing about education is being said to them or is being talked to them, you see that the children too will at times fall behind. They will not take it seriously. But when the teachers are talking about it here and they go back home, the parents too also emphasize on it, that child will know that no, this thing that they are really talking is something that is important in his or her life, and they will take it serious. So it's really good for parents to spend some time with their children at home as education is concerned, not only spending time for other things, but on education.
Those were interviews of the week. Now, in 2023, the national chairman is going to relinquish the leadership of the party, and there are speculations, there are a lot of things that have been said, and from what is happening within the party, there are some observers who think that the national chairman is no longer in control of that party, but somebody else is pulling strings under the table, and the name of the first vice president keeps coming up. Has the chairman prepared a successor, somebody who's going to take over him?
First of all, I don't agree with that conclusion that the national chairman is no longer in control of the party. I don't agree with that conclusion. He is the chairman, and by virtue, if you know His Excellency John Frundi, you will know that he's a very strong man. He cannot just be pocketed like that. That is a person who braves all the odds. For 30 years he has been at the front. Who in the SDF will pocket him? And on a more private basis, you know him. You know him personally. Is the chairman somebody that can be pocketed like that? I don't think so. The issue is, and then your second question is whether he has left a successor. The Social Democratic Front is not a monarchy.
Has he been grooming somebody?
He has groomed me. He has groomed Tsumelu, Senator. He has groomed VP, Honorable Osi. He has groomed Honorable Nietzsche. He has groomed Tonga. He has groomed Yoyo, Honorable Yoyo. He has groomed Chief Tumasan. He has groomed Madame Barrister Maître Adeline. He has groomed, in fact, the list goes on. His grooming of leadership is, he has administered the party in a way that younger generation, vital people have come up. And in the SDF, it's difficult to see who will take over. Some people, the chairman once made a joke that if you want to dance your dance and dance lame before the real dance is your problem.
Now, what do you say about the idea that when you discuss with some lovers of the SDF, sympathizers of the SDF.
Yes.
Some of them will tell you what is the only thing left in the SDF is the name of the chairman. And so they are for a difficult future of the SDF without the chairman when he hands over.
No, I think that with the electoral reforms that SDF fought and achieved with biometric registration, it was a landmark, and from there, electoral results of SDF started improving. I'm not saying that the electoral reforms are wonderful, but we moved a step, and the results of the SDF were already increasing. Unfortunately, the war came. I can assure you that if this war did not come to destabilize Northwest and Southwest, SDF will be counting at least 35 MPs. At least, to be very humble.
The drop has been very drastic.
Because of the war, mostly because of the war. And that is why the Social Democratic Front holds President Biya's regime for this. Because how do you imagine that the war has only profited CPDM politically in the Northwest and Southwest? Places that were no-go area for CPDM, they have won.
They're taking over everything.
Yes, because the war they are the main beneficiaries of this war. So it makes somebody to feel very strongly that the war is entertained for political gains. Because how will you imagine? So when I went with biometric, when biometric came, there are places where before biometric, voter registration was 70,000. Biometric came and brought it down to less than 20,000. So the rest were ghost voters. And that is why I'm telling you that if not of this war that destabilized our stronghold, you know, the Northwest and the Southwest were giving the pace, setting the pace. Because even in Francophone zone, we had the political ground in the Northwest and Southwest reinforced them too. Reinforced them in the West, reinforced in Littoral. In other places we have won out of Northwest and Southwest. But when it was destabilized by a war which many feel that that war is entertained and a possible solution not sought because for the political gains coming from the war, it discouraged many people. The wounds of the SDF are mostly that war. Because we fought the achievements
out of the war here in the Littoral.
I was just telling you that maybe you didn't get the point. I was saying that let me give you an example. Many Anglophones displaced this way, and the ones that have been living and working here, they have got so disgruntled with elections and politics that, and those are our voters who encouraged invested themselves, encouraged other Cameroonians to get involved. They were so disgruntled with the way their zone was being destroyed that they didn't want to participate in the election again. So it has an influence this way. Because when your zone is powerful, the political stamina, some people saw mayors in Bamenda, mayors in SDF, mayor in Boya, mayors in Kumba. It gave some people from Littoral, from the center, from West, it gave them the courage that, so opposition too can win. How do these people win? They fight harder, they fought harder to win. But the war came and your own king, your own jokers, political joker like in cat, the king is destroyed. If the general in the war is destroyed, is killed, the rest of the troops behind the general will be demoralized. The Northwest and the Southwest were like the general of SDF, what they call in political jargon, the bastion, the base,
the stronghold of
the SDF. And right. This is what happened.
Now,
so it has those effects.
Now, what will you tell Cameroonians?
But before you go to that,
yes,
please, I don't want to be propagandist. I am not saying that we don't have our own management lapses. We have. But that's why we do auto-criticism. And that's why there are some voices that are coming up very strong in the SDF. That the SDF has to be more frontal. That the SDF has to take its pole position to be, because the name on the SDF is front and not party. And a front means you must be what they call combatant. You must be at the front line. You must convince the people that you are still fighting on their side. You must stand up and criticize, because the rule of the opposition is to criticize what is going wrong on the other side, so that they sit up. So that is why, so some people feel that we are not doing this enough, even within the party. And so they are saying that we have to be more forthright in our positions. And the population is saying the same thing. And that is why I am saying that I cannot, if I say SDL has no management problem, it's perfect, then I'm a propagandist. I'm not here to do propaganda. We have our own weaknesses, which like every other institution has its weaknesses, and we are struggling to contain those weaknesses. One of the results of those weaknesses is the type of boiling, the boiling, this thing. What is boiling in the SDF? The boiling of debates. The debates boiling. That is what is, it is as a result of that. But people should not forget to know that. People should not forget the fact that that boiling is not a crisis. It is the dynamism. It's the right. Democratic buoyancy.
So what will you tell some persons, supporters, sympathizers, or even militants of the SDF who have been somehow adversely affected by all the issues happening within the party, and of course the other things that are set out of the party, selfish ambitions? Some of the people have lost trust in the SDF. Some of the people have said it's not worthwhile anymore.
No, I will.
What will you tell them?
Whatever the case, there is no way.
What will you tell them?
Yes, I will tell them that there is no way you can stop a selfish man from being in a political party. Those type of people are in all political parties. It's not everybody in a political party that's an angel. So, the members of the party, the SDF is a grassroots party, so, which means that the kingmakers in the party are not the leaders at the top. We are not a party, the card. We are a grassroots party. And in the convention, the delegates will come from different wards and electoral districts to determine the leadership of the party. If you find something not going right with Denis NKEMLEMO, National Secretary for Communication, when the convention comes, use your joker, use your card, put him aside. If you have something not going on with whoever, do that. Don't undermine fellow members, don't undermine the power you have, the power of your vote. Luckily, in the Social Democratic Front, the vote is very transparent because it is single ballot, where nobody can come out and buy the vote of the opponent from you. That show me the vote of the opponent, person you have voted against, I give you this money. It's single ballot and sacred ballot, and it is done in front of everybody. If I don't remember, if I can remember, in 2018, in the Bamenda Convention that elected us, this outgoing executive, you were there. It was one of the fewest conventions in Cameroon of the political party in Cameroon that was done live. CRTV, I'm not giving advertisement for that house, televised it live. The convention went live. Everybody saw what was going there. The general public was a witness. So when it comes to election, we are the model. And that is why we are fighting for elections in Cameroon to reflect elections in the SDF. So those militants, those members of the SDF, you shouldn't be discouraged. You should only hold your card. You know who to vote when the time comes and who not to vote. The worst thing is to backslide and leave the SDF. Because when you backslide and leave the SDF and turn your back on the SDF, which other political party following the constitution that you know very well has a better constitution and has a better implantation? I'm not talking of CPDM, which uses administrative power and units to put themselves over, which other political party has structures over like the SDF. So we should join. If you feel that you can do better, come at the convention and take a position. That is, whether you are take a position in NEC that can make you do better, rather than abandoning. Abandoning is not the solution. Somebody once said, quitters are losers.
Losers. All right,
So
we're going to end here, but before we go, very quickly, I want you to put in one or two words on what you told the President of the Republic, you, the SDF, on the occasion of the visit of the French President Emmanuel Macron. You urged the President of the Republic to defend the sovereignty, to protect and defend the sovereignty of the Cameroonian people, especially in the areas of abrogation of the Colonial Pact of 1959 with its amendments and annexes, and the Anglophone problem, the currency issue, the electoral process, and so on. Tell us a little more, particularly about the abrogation of the Colonial Pact of 1959.
Yes.
Very quickly.
Yes, how can you imagine that we are using a currency of a people who are not even using it? We are using France CFA. France have abandoned the francs for euro. We are still using that. Those are results of obnoxious, the consequence of obnoxious colonial pact. How can you imagine that more than 60? How can you imagine that happened? How can you imagine that after the major national dialogue, which the head of state failed to address the people, that met in the conference center in Yaoundé, failed to address the people of that convention after that national dialogue, he moved to France and openly said he was going there to render account. Because if he were not a slave of the tongue, then it would be very dangerous. Because a head of state renders account to his citizens.
His people. Yes,
to his people, not to a foreign leader. So those are elements of the colonial accord that are very vexatious.
That should be abolished.
Yes, and so the chairman's outing, the national chairman's outing, was extremely timely. Extremely timely. Because we, SDF in power, will complete the decolonization of Cameroon.
Denis NKEMLEMO, National Communications Secretary of the Social Democratic Front. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. That's it for today's edition of The Inside. Goodbye.